So the claim is, and Hillary made this claim and many others, 69 million married women won't be able to vote if they took on the name of their husband.
Lie detector determined that was a lie.
16 issue in terms of the polls. Voters want ID, signature verification, chain of custody controls, updated voter rolls. They want partisan observers watching the voting all day, the vote counting all night. That brings integrity to the process and confidence in results. Why would you be against it?
The only reason, Sean, you would be against any of that is if you wanted illegal aliens to vote and to vote in incredibly large number.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
That demonstrates you're a citizen. Democrats want illegal aliens to vote. It's why Joe Biden and his administration gave millions, we verified this now, millions with an M, of illegal aliens social security numbers. And once you have a social security number, it is incredibly easy to vote, to collect welfare, to get free government benefits, to participate in every aspect of American life. This isn't a mystery. They want illegals to steal elections, Sean.
Ms. Carter-Walters, do you have a view as to why these people want to encourage people to break the law?
Well, we believe that because the Democrat Party have a 21% approval rating, they need voters, first of all. And it's disgusting to hear that they're advocating for people who broke the law to get here, and to hear them talk about their rights, all while infringing on our rights as true American citizens, is disgusting. And that's why we, the people, trust President Trump, because he listened to us. He's a president of common sense, and who in their right mind will be pushing. Now they see that 80% want mass deportation of everybody. Like you said, when you allow millions of people to come over here illegally, saturating America, then that means that we have to get them out of here and then bring them back and let them come in the correct way.
It's amazing what President Trump has already done by closing down the border, making sure we're enforcing our federal laws, doing all we can to identify those that are in this country that don't belong here, that are committing crimes, and we're continuing to enact policies that will give us the chance to do that. You've had quite a bit of discussion on Real ID and its implementation here in the country, and the reason that Real ID is being enforced is because it's a federal law. Joe Biden kicked the can to May 7th, and this Real ID is going to just empower the states to make sure we're checking people's residences. Their current legal status will be verified. We're going to make sure that people who are getting Social Security numbers in this country aren't voting in states. The states have the power and the information to ensure election integrity. And here at the federal level, that information is not going to be any biometric information. It'll just allow people to get an ID that they should be on our planes. They should be people that are United States residencies, and that legal status will be checked. So it'll allow us to get more information to states so that they're making sure that they're protecting their election laws as well.
So, Madam Secretary, what's the confusion on this? Because I've heard some women say that this is very difficult for them. I actually checked. Apparently, in the state of Texas, I already have a Real ID. I didn't even know it was given to me.
Yeah, it's interesting, Lawrence. You know, some of the most conservative states are the first ones to put it in place because they recognized. You know, South Dakota was the first state to do it. Florida, Texas. We already have 81% compliance of all travelers already have a Real ID. And already use it. So that's why TSA is working so hard to educate people ahead of the deadline to get that other small percentage educated so that it can be operated and put into place smoothly to ensure that people who are on traveling in our country, that we know who they are, that they live here, that we know what their legal status is, and that we can make sure we share that information and states have that information. We want the states to be compliant in this, which is a database that they have access to that the federal government doesn't use for any purposes.
So today, President Trump will host the president of El Salvador at the White House. The two are expected to discuss Trump's push to deport criminal migrants like the ones the administration already sent to the mega prison in El Salvador. Meantime, the Department of Justice says that the courts have no authority to order the administration to return the deported Maryland man back to the United States. Joining us now, the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem. Welcome, Madam Secretary. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me, Lawrence.
So, Madam Secretary, I'm enjoying this showdown because the Supreme Court essentially gave the courts some authority as it relates to coming up with an agreement, but it didn't say that the court could do foreign policy. In your latest filing, I found something very interesting from it. This is you, the plaintiff. This is your court filing. It says the plaintiff invite the court to exceed its own authority in the precise sort of way the Supreme Court cautioned them against. This court should decline that invitation. So it's saying if you keep getting out of line, then we'll just let the Supreme Court deal with you. Is that y'all's position?
Yes, I think that what the Supreme Court said here in this decision was a very clear message to other judges across this country, is that stop acting like you have the authority to dictate foreign policy and national security decisions that the president is making to protect its citizens. So this was just one of those examples of an individual that, was an MS-13 gang member, had multiple charges and encounters with the individuals here. Trafficking in his background, was found with other MS-13 gang members, very dangerous person. And what the liberal left and the fake news are doing to turn him into a media darling is sickening.
Flashback.
A federal judge here in Maryland directing the federal government to return Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran national who earlier in the week the Trump administration said they had mistakenly deported to El Salvador. After a hearing here in Maryland, the federal judge finding that he was sent there without legal basis and now needs to be returned. His wife talking earlier in the day about the tremendous impact it's had on her family. Here are her words.
Kilmer, if you can hear me, I miss you so much, and I'm doing the best to fight for you and our children. If I had all the money in the world, I'll spend it all just to buy one thing, a phone call, to hear Kilmer's voice again, and have the opportunity to talk to him and the kids again.
Yes, I think that what the Supreme Court said here in this decision was a very clear message to other judges across this country, is that stop acting like you have the authority to dictate foreign policy and national security decisions that the president is making to protect its citizens. So this was just one of those examples of an individual that, was an MS-13 gang member, had multiple charges and encounters with the individuals here. Trafficking in his background, was found with other MS-13 gang members, very dangerous person. And what the liberal left and the fake news are doing to turn him into a media darling is sickening. We need to stop doing this, stop allowing liberal judges to try to dictate what President Trump is doing to make America safe again. So I'm grateful for the Supreme Court's decision, and I'm hopeful that we can have a new path forward where the president and his powers are recognized.
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CB.
Thank you, President. Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him,
And
President?
you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant, because they're totally slanted, because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
anyone
Court's
to get
asking
him back?
to.
And
that-
what was the ruling
that your
in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele,
Presidente
what is your,
Bukele?
can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always CNN.
How can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please go ahead.
We will register everyone. We will check, because if you have committed a crime in this country or the country you came from, then you will not be able to stay. You will have to be deported.
This is just one more example of something that is not thought through and is primarily put forward for political consumption.
The bill before us will certainly do some good. It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders.
The fence is now basically complete. Maybe they'll need a moat. Maybe they want alligators in the moat.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary in some places.
We will not build a wall. Instead, we will build an economy where everyone who wants a good job can get one.
I voted for a fence. I voted, unlike most Democrats, and some of you won't like it, I voted for 700-mile fence. And let me tell you something, folks. People are driving across that border with tons, hear me, tons of everything from byproducts from methamphetamine to cocaine to heroin. It's all coming up through corrupt Mexico.
And the impulse is to hunker down, shut the gates, build walls, exit at this moment is precisely the wrong answer.
Former presidents have said to him that they wish that they had built a wall. Do you recall President Obama ever saying that?
Come on.
Construction of a 630-mile border fence create a significant barrier to illegal immigration on our southern land border. All along, the president's saying, well, I'll do DACA and Dreamers in return for the wall. He's got it. President Trump, if you want to open the government, you must abandon the wall.
Meanwhile,
this is the time when I wish I was in Congress. That Jasmine Crockett lady, see, she needs somebody like me to handle her. Yeah, that's what it is. This lady had a nerve to get up there and say that Trump is turning America into Russia. Jasmine Crockett, where were you when we, the citizens of Chicago, the black citizens, you know, the black people that you like to reference to, the one you used to, the citizens, the black people that you always trying to use the race card with, where were you when the black citizens of Chicago and everywhere were telling you that they were trying, you all, your party, were trying to make our neighborhoods and our communities look like little Venezuela? Where were you when we were complaining about that and said that they were trying to push us up out of our neighborhoods, out of the black community, when we were complaining, going up there arguing with Brandon Johnson about that? Where were you? I didn't see you say anything about that. And then you got the nerve to say Trump trying to make America like Russia? You mean how you all tried to make America look like Venezuela on steroids? That, you got a lot of nerves. See, the problem is you don't have the right people in Congress that's going to come against you, that's going to go right there with you. I wish I was, because I would be that one. Also, how is it that you all have a problem with Elon doing what he's supposed to do and doing what we asked him to do? Talking about social security numbers and all that sensitive information. You all were not saying that when you all gave unelected bureaucrats our information. They've been sending money and stuff like that. They've been we're talking about people that's broke. Broke people, unelected bureaucrats who have access to our information that you all allowed to. You all was not saying that then. It was okay that for broke people to work for the federal government, U.S. aid, to go in there and have our information, sensitive information. You all wasn't crying and complaining then. Now y'all want to complain. No, we good. We good. We, the American people, we trust Elon, a billionaire, way more than we trust you. Because we know you a thief and you done stole a bunch of money. You, Pelosi, all of them. Now we're asking next, Elon, please send Doge to Chicago and Illinois. Now we want them. We want those crooks, all of them, to go to jail. I keep telling y'all, you all keep thinking it's sweet. You all keep thinking we're playing. We're not playing with you all. Brandon Johnson, yes, we're coming for your seat. Governor Pritzker, and all of you all. We're coming for those seats. We're not playing here in Chicago. Chicago flips red will not stop until we turn the whole Illinois and the city red.
Damn!
Well, the whole state is just so
poorly managed. It's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. Mm-hmm. And California is the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And like, you're out of your mind, dude. You've ruined this state. Like, personally ruined it.